Okay, and we are live. Welcome to another episode of All Things Xbox podcast. Today, once again, I have with me Logan. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. How about yourself?
Good. Annoyed at some of the topics we're going to talk about today, but before we get into the topics, I want to talk about a game I've been playing, which was Kingdoms of Amalur.
Oh, love that game.
Yeah, that game's good, like really good. And for people listening, it's a fantasy RPG that came out in 2012. It was made by 38 Studios, which was It was founded by a baseball player, Kurt Schilling, I think his name is.
Yep.
And pretty much got the state of Old Island or whatever you call it into debt, and the studio shut down. And it's pretty much been this game that's been around for years, and nothing happened with it. And then THQ bought the rights to the game in I think it was 2017 or something, and they got all the assets, everything, even helped by like the original team. And they eventually came out with the remaster last year, which is actually 4K 60 frames per second on Xbox One X, and that carries over to Series X as well. And it's good. Like, it's a very simplistic RPG, but I think that works in its favor. It came out after Skyrim, so everyone was looking at this thinking, is this going to be the Skyrim killer? And I think the problem is when it comes to games like that is that it's always going to fail. Every game that's called a something killer isn't good. Drive Club was called the Forza killer, never happened. Killzone was called the Halo killer, never happened. And then people were actually calling this back in the days the Skyrim killer, and we all know how that turned out. And the reason I'm talking about this game, other than the fact that I'm really enjoying it, and I think people really need to play it, I think it was on the recent PlayStation Plus lineup. It's good, it's simple, it's easy to get into, and the problem with most RPGs, they're filled with overly complicated menus, and they don't put in time and effort into combat mechanics. Whereas this game does. There's next to no menus outside of your upgrade tree and your equipment, but the combat is the main focus in this game. It's kind of a cross between Fable 2 and God of War in a weird way, and it just works. And I'm really enjoying it. But the main reason I'm starting off talking about this is that the new expansion got announced. So we finally get an expansion to a game that came out in 2012. It comes out December 14th, Fate Sworn, and yeah, I'm actually quite surprised. Like, it's like we knew the update was coming, or the expansion, but it is kind of weird that we live in a time where we getting expansions to games that came out almost a decade ago because they got re-releases. Like, what's your thought on the whole situation?
I'm super excited about it. It's one of the most criminally underrated games, in my opinion. It's like you said, it's very much a mix of Fable and God of War in terms of combat, and the writing is really good. Like it feels a little like an Obsidian game, and I mean that as a high compliment. And the terms of witty dialogue and the choices you can make, and there's so much customization. So it's all about fate and destiny, and basically, like, this isn't a massive plot spoiler. It's just the general tone of the game. But you're a person without a fate, without a destiny, and so in a world that's dominated by fate and destiny, and so you're this person who can craft your own and choose your own destiny. You've been granted this opportunity through magical intervention, and so it's just all about that and how you, as someone that has no destiny, but the destiny you choose affects the others who have had their destiny chosen for them. And then it's just, it's really fun. There's fun characters and quests you encounter. And it has all the DLC that came with it when it after it launched a long time ago on the 360, and the new, finally, a major expansion, the Fate Sworn expansion, coming later this month. I'm super stoked for that. I've had it sitting on my shelf waiting for that Fate Sworn to come so that I could just jump in and play it all again at once. And like, there's full fun. Like, they kept the Dragon, not Dragon Age, Mass Effect armor tie-in, even though it's no longer an EA game anymore. And just I don't know. It's really fun, and if you like Fable, and if you ever played Divinity 2 Dragon Knight Saga, it's a game I think is criminally underrated as well. Very similar kind of tone and vibe to it, and you will really love this, and you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, it is a lot like Fable. Like that was one of my biggest takeaways from playing it, and that's a good thing. Like if you think about it, Fable came out, I should say Fable 2 came out in what, 2008 or 9, and we haven't really had like any games like that since. Fable 3 came out, it was in a direction not a lot of people liked, but we haven't really had whimsical, fantastical RPGs since, and this is one of them, and like it's really good. And yeah, it might be a decade old almost, but it's still good. Like it has one of the best and most simplistic combat systems I've played in an RPG, but it works in its favor because it's easy to get into. And I've told people that have struggled to get into RPGs in the past, like this is a good way to get into it because the story's light and easy to understand. The lore is pretty much presented in front of you. It's not open-ended like Skyrim where you just set out and you're not told anything. Like the game kind of tells you what to do, and it's good. Like I recommend it, and I just wanted to talk about that before I get into the rant because I tend to rant about Square Enix on these podcasts. And I need to rant today because there's a few topics I need to rant about, and the first one being Square Enix. Square Enix and I have this love-hate relationship. It's gone on for years. They've released games I liked. They've released games I haven't liked. But they have this thing where they don't release Japanese games on Xbox almost all the time. They put out ports for every game on almost every other platform except Xbox. And it's weird because they cherry pick what games go on the Xbox platform, and that's never sat well with me. The first Kingdom Hearts game that went to Xbox was 3. We got the remasters for the originals a year later. The first mainline Final Fantasy game on Xbox was Final Fantasy 13. And then we got 15, like almost a decade later. And then we're not getting 16 at launch. This list goes on all day, and I could talk about JRPGs all day, but the truth is we don't get a lot on Xbox. So today, Square Enix announced that the Secret of Mana, or should I say the Legend of Mana remake, is going to iOS. Now, I have an iPhone. I use that phone every day for Twitter, taking photos, whatever. I don't like to game on the thing. I've used xCloud, and it works. And I use it in combination with a controller and a clip. But these RPGs by Square Enix and Sega and all these other publishers they put on every single time, and it's like, you are purposely skipping Xbox when there's money to be had. Because we're living in a generation now, and the same with last generation, where these consoles, the hardware is basically PCs. An Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, they all PCs, PC architecture. And time again, they skip Xbox, and it makes no sense because the ports don't cost that much to make. People like to make it seem like they won't make that money back. It's not true. And if you look at the past, many games by Japanese developers launch in Game Pass, so they're making the money back that way anyway. But it's just another game Square Enix is skipping out on straight away, and it's disappointing because the reason why Japanese games don't sell on Xbox is because they don't happen regularly. Like, people have to be used to seeing things in a store, right? So if you want a sports game and you go to a store, you're used to seeing sports games in the store. If you want to buy an RPG on Xbox, you're going to see many. But if you want a Japanese RPG, a really good one, go to the store and try and find one. It's next to impossible because there's so few of them. Like, we have all these mobile ports, and that's it. We have a few big ones like Final Fantasy, 13 trilogy, 15, Kingdom Hearts, you have Yakuza by Sega. Sega's getting a lot better at the situation, but it's like time and time again, Square Enix does this. And I just don't understand. Because if you go to their replies on Twitter to these announcements, it's always filled with Xbox people wanting these ports. And to me, I don't like using the term lazy developers. I really don't. But this is a situation where I have to call them out on it. It's lazy development. Actually, I'm going to say a lazy publisher. Square Enix, I think they are holding Japanese games hostage for Game Pass money. They want the money up front for ports. So a game might get announced down the line, and maybe a big one, which they need to make the money back on. Because think about it, all the big games third-party games by Square Enix that aren't exclusive to PlayStation, they come to Xbox. But the smaller ones aren't, and that doesn't make sense. Well, I think it's because they want Microsoft to, pony up the cash. And if you look at all the past announcements, like the Final Fantasy collection going to Game Pass eventually, makes sense. But I don't know, what's your thought on the whole situation?
I'm very much like you. I have a love-hate relationship with how they do things. It's it's nonsense. Like you hear people say like they don't come to the platform because they don't sell well. I'm like, well, how do you expect it to sell well when you give them the third one in a trilogy and just expect them to just buy the third one and completely just ignore the first two? And then you go, see, no one bought it, so we're not going to port the first two. It just it's a back end just line of thinking that's nonsensical. It's not logical. And I mean, part of you wonders if maybe it's because, Xbox is simply not the brand, it's an American company from across the pond. It's not ingrained in culture where Square Enix is, where they're more associated with Sony and Nintendo from more established relationships. So maybe it just at the bottom end, at the end of the day, it's just that they have a very long track record and established relationships with them. So they just do that. And then Xbox is like, we'll toss you a few scraps, or if you pay up big bucks, we'll give you something nice. Like, Octopath Traveler, I was shocked that came to Xbox. But like you said, it was a huge Game Pass deal. And then a few other games like Xbox, chipped in quite a bit of money for the Final Fantasy 13 trilogy. And then, has there been any other Final Fantasy games come to Xbox? Hardly any, except some older ones eventually, after it's been quite some time, will eventually come to Xbox and it'll be a remaster or port. Or some even for backwards compatibility, a separate topic, like they would remaster some for PlayStation 5 or 4, but they wouldn't even let it become BC for the Xbox One. And it's literally a game they've already made. All you have to do is say, go ahead. And it's maddening. And then the fact that they're putting it on phones is, which you would think would be a whole different type of infrastructure and tech than just porting it to another console architecture. I don't know, it's maddening to me too.
It's strange because, we live in a world where they are releasing games like, the Legend of Mana remake, and they've put it on everything, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, Stadia, PC, your neighbor's dog. The list goes on, and it's a shame because I see people request these games all the time, and people keep saying, Microsoft has to do more, and the truth is, it's on Square. It really is. Like, Microsoft doesn't have to and shouldn't have to be forced to pay for the port of everything. This isn't a Final Fantasy 13 like situation back in the 2000s where they had to pay for it up front. Like, that's not how development works. Like, it's a third-party publisher's job to make the game, fund it, advertise it, get it on said platforms. And it's like, there's an audience waiting. And the audience of JRPG fans on Xbox, it literally can't grow. It can't grow unless games are put on regularly. That was another reason why Yakuza on Xbox is actually gaining popularity. They started with Zero, and then they put the rest of the games on Game Pass throughout the year. It gained a following. And then with the new console, they heavily advertised Like a Dragon, the latest game, and with English voice acting to the biggest audience yet. And it was a huge success. Apparently, it's the best-selling Yakuza game. And I wonder why. It's on multiple platforms, and, they did English lip sync. By the way, Yakuza Like a Dragon has English lip sync at the same time. Not many games do that. Like, I've rarely played a Japanese game with English dialogue to do that. But it's just a shame, because they are missing out on easy money, and there's money to be had. They just have to port it. And it's just ridiculous. And does it have something to do with them being an American company? It could be. It could be the fact that Japanese audiences don't buy Xboxes, and the platform isn't big there. but they should know that the majority of their sales come from the US and Europe. And that's the weird thing. Like, they should know by now to put those games there. It's like, look at next year, right? On Xbox, we are getting Final Fantasy Origins, Strangers of Paradise. One, that's a terrible name. And it's come to Xbox. The demo is also available, but like, I've seen next to no marketing for that game. Like, a Final Fantasy game is getting next to no marketing. That's normally the opposite of what they do. Final Fantasy games are like massively advertised. Remember the campaign for 5? They were putting adverts on TV for months leading up to that. They had a CG film. They had an anime series. They had CG adverts, which were actually really cool. They had licensed music in said adverts. But they're not doing any of that for their next game. And then, hell, they barely talking about Final Fantasy 16, which is weird because that's going to be the biggest entry in years. It's weird, man. It really is. It's a shame. But, I think we're going to move from this to Battlefield. So, Battlefield, it didn't come out in the best shape. It's a game nobody really likes that much. Like, I haven't enjoyed it at all. It's not good. But the thing is, it's the comments afterwards. It's like the developers called a map and a scoreboard, legacy features. Like, that makes no sense. That's like calling a weapon in Halo a legacy feature. It makes no sense. You use the map in Battlefield all the time. You use things like, how shall I put it? The scoreboard to see who's doing good. Like, that's the truth. Like, and it's just weird. Like, the situation for Battlefield makes no sense. It turns out the game's being developed by a shell of itself. And the Battlefield franchise is shifting focus. So Battlefield 2042 is going to be its own universe now, and it's going to have multiple games in that universe, which another shared universe, yeah, I guess. But it's like the head of Respawn, Vince Zampella, he's going to be, heading up Battlefield. And that sounds like a cool situation because, his projects, when they overlooked right, they work out really well. Jedi Fallen Order, he kind of oversaw that, worked out well. Apex, really well. The first Titanfall game, same situation. But, like, one of the news stories that came out is that Battlefield is going to be getting a spin-off that's a hero shooter. Now, that makes no sense because Battlefield is the furthest thing away from a hero shooter, and the main thing people don't like about Battlefield 2042 is that it has specialists, something of which is really in common with hero shooters. It's like, by the way, Logan, have you played the demo yet or the trial?
I actually haven't touched the new Battlefield at all. I've been fully engrossed in Halo Mania at the moment, but I've been watching curiously from afar, and it doesn't look like it's going so well. But I think with the Respawn guy coming in and helping shape things up, I think that's going to be a massive boon. Respawn has proven again and again they know that what they touch turns the gold. So I would expect whatever they're doing to be awesome. It is weird the idea of a hero shooter for Battlefield. I'm not sure what kind of thing they're thinking for heroes, or are they like thinking like like maybe historical figures, or are they talking like superheroes, or like what? But that just seems odd to me.
Yeah, it doesn't fit the franchise. And, if anyone like listening has played like PC games before, they already did this about a decade ago. It was called Battlefield Heroes, and it was more in common with Fortnite than anything else. It was a third-person, over-the-shoulder game. Multiplayer, you could call in cartoony tanks and stuff. They sold things like cosmetics and stuff, and it's like a game that came out in like 2010 or something has more in common now with multiplayer games than a lot of like other stuff that comes out. But it's like, I don't know, it's like I've noticed that we see and this goes into Halo and pretty much every other multiplayer, Call of Duty or whatever, everyone's complaining about multiplayer across the board. Battlefield doesn't feel like itself. It's this hero shooter filled Battlefield, but the gunplay is terrible. The graphics are good, but not as good as Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4 has more features. Call of Duty, look, let's face it, Call of Duty always has a massive fan base. It really does. Like, I used to be a fan. I play the occasional Call of Duty game, but it's People are complaining because it's the World War II thing. You have Halo, that's free to play, and it does the whole microtransactions via Battle Pass. And things like Call of Duty Warzone, Fortnite do Battle Passes. Now, I was going to make a separate video on this topic, and I think I might still do that, but the downfall of multiplayer has been happening for the past generation. Like, people have complained about multiplayer all the time. Battlefield 4 launched, and it was completely broken. They eventually fixed it, and Battlefield 4 was an amazing game in the end. Titanfall comes out, and it worked superb. And in my opinion, that was one of the shining beacons of hope for me for multiplayer last generation. But Call of Duty kept coming out, charging for map packs, and it got worse and worse, and they start charging for, microtransactions and stuff. And then we had, Rainbow Six Siege. So the point I'm getting at is that everyone's complaining about multiplayer at the minute, but if you look at the Xbox 360 generation, and on PS3 and Wii, the only thing we had to pay for was map packs. Isn't it weird how everyone complained for years that we had to pay for map packs and the player base was split, yet the second they get taken away and everyone has free maps, everyone across every console and every ecosystem across the board is saying, yeah, free maps, everyone's playing together. And they were right, but we weren't really looking deep into it because we got screwed in the end because we have to pay for microtransactions, battle passes, and battle passes aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's just the ways they implement it. But it's like, in the 360 generation, and on PS3 and Wii, and PC, we only had to pay for map packs. You're spending $10 to $15 once every 3 months on a pack of 4 maps. And it made me realize, like, we were complaining about nothing in comparison. Like, what's your thought on this? Am I being paranoid, or do I have any point?
No, I actually completely agree with you. Like, I remember some of my first experiences with DLC back in the 360 were map packs for like Halo, Halo 3 and such. Like, you get the frozen one that's like the cryogenics lab, or you get a swamp, or you buy this or this, and they're either bundled together, or you could get one or two separately for less money. And that was back when it used to be points, like 500 points or 2,000 points, before they converted it to just straight dollars, to where you knew exactly what you had and were spending. um and then, of course, there was odd things like horse armor and, Infamous and Oblivion and goofy stuff like that. But for the most part, DLC was pretty straightforward, and it didn't feel too exploitive. Like, I got it. Like, okay, they made new maps, so that were in addition later on, and if I want it, I pay a little bit for it and I get it. I'm like, okay, cool. And then, they introduce season passes, and I was like, what on earth is this? And then it's like, oh, okay, so instead of having to buy this expansion and then maybe another expansion later, I buy this. And so it's like, okay, so they rope you in a little bit more. And then now there's not only season passes, but there's like season pass part 1, or season 1 season pass, and now season 2 season pass. And then it's like, wait a minute, you said I get all the DLC in the season pass. Why are you jimmying around and coming up with another season pass when you said I would get everything in the first one? And then the whole skins thing, just it's become such a cluster, um, honestly. But, at the end of the day, people can make the decisions they want, and if they think it's worth it, then kudos to them. And if they think it's highway robbery and wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, then that's good for them too. I'm kind of in the middle, but there are definitely some companies in particular who push it to the max and are like out to bleed every single last cent, versus some other ones that are more generous with, you buy one season pass, you get everything that we're going to make for this game going forward. And then, others, like I said, are like bleed you dry about it. But I definitely think we were kind of caught up in that, and they roped us in, and now things are way worse than they were in the 360 generation when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I bring this up because I was looking at my shelf the other day with all my 360 games on, and I watched a review by Angry Joe. Everyone's familiar with Angry Joe, and he gets really angry. And it was complaining about these online passes. Can you remember the online pass? Like, if you bought a game used towards the second half of the 360 PS3 generation, like, you had to pay for a fee to activate the game so you could play online. And those passes would cost about $5 or £5, depending on what region you were in. But I was just looking at my 360 games, and we complained about nothing on comparison, like that generation. Like, it was the generation where we start getting DLC, but a lot of it was good. I'd say it was the generation where expansions became the normal. GTA 4 had 2 great expansions. Skyrim had many great expansions. Fallout, fantastic expansions. So it was the generation where, due to online and these consoles having stores, these franchises and these games got more content, and we were willing to pay for it. And then the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 generation came along, and they dropped the online pass, and they dropped the passes for, seasons, so you got all the maps for free, but now we get microtransactions, battle passes, and the thing is, battle passes aren't necessarily a bad thing. Like, I think it's good that Halo doesn't have a timer on them, so you can, buy one battle pass and you have that for life. So you can unlock stuff like 2 years from now. It's like there's no time on it. Like, but Call of Duty in Fortnite, you have a certain amount of time to unlock them. And it's just weird, man. Because I talk about the 360 generation like it was this shining beacon of hope. It was a better time.
I mean, it was the golden era to me as well, the OG and 360 for sure.
Like, I see the problems in video games today get called modern gaming. Like, we expect games to launch broken. Like, we really do. Like, most games today come out with an update that's almost as big as the game itself. Like, and this goes towards all platforms. And, and PC as well. Like, this is a problem. Like, the original, or should I say the Xbox 360, PS3, Wii, and PC at the time, we did not have these problems. People were vocal about map packs. We got the map packs taken away, and we end up paying more. Like, think about it. Map packs cost about £10 to £15 once every quarter. Like, and now you have to spend more on that on, season passes and stuff. And here's the thing, season passes aren't bad. Like, I remember there was a season pass for LA Noire where it actually worked out £10 cheaper. So you were saving money, and it was a decent amount of content. But it's like, it's weird to see that during the 360 generation, we were paying less for games. We were actually getting more. And the whole online situation when it comes to pricing was nowhere near as bad as it is now. I think it was Call of Duty Black Ops 4 where they were selling individual scopes and sights for games, like in the game for like $5. Like a red dot sight was like $5, and like that's a bit much. Like they're trying to drain us dry. Now the reason I'm talking about these even more is because I got really annoyed today by Ubisoft, and I love Ubisoft. Like, they get memed on all the time, they really do. But the truth is, like, during the Xbox 360 generation and rolling into the Xbox One, like, they were my favorite publisher. They came out with Assassin's Creed 1, 2, 3, 4, Revelations. It looked really good. They had a really strong run of games. They came out with Splinter Cell Conviction and then Blacklist in 2013. They came out with Far Cry 3, which wasn't advertised in the UK, but it charted #1 just due to word of mouth. It was that good. And then they had Rayman Origins, and it was a really good look for them. Like, they were at the top. Like, Ubisoft, everyone loved their games. And then something happened. Ubisoft, they smelt money. They were like sharks in the water. Someone was bleeding, and they went for it. And the Xbox One generation, you could just see them. If you look at all their games, like in a calendar, you can see the decline of not just quality, but the amount of games and types of games. We had side-scrolling platformers, stealth games, open world games, be it Far Cry and Assassin's Creed. Like, Ghost Recon used to be a linear third-person shooter, and
Is it?
now all their franchises are open world games. Now, open world games aren't necessarily a bad thing, but everything is open world now. The new Splinter Cell, which is in development, is rumored to be open world. And that infuriates me, and that makes my I'll be honest, that makes my piss boil. It really does. Like, I've waited a century for a new Splinter Cell game. And then we get rumors that there's a VR game in the works, and it's like, okay, that's a side project. I'll allow it. I will allow it. But an open world Splinter Cell game, the thing that makes Splinter Cell really good is that you're traveling all the way around the world to these exotic locations and all these different places, and it's like, you can't do that in an open world. Not really. Like, in another game that showed that you can't do that, and that's Metal Gear Solid 5. There's, 2 or 3 different maps in that game, and it's all the same. You're running from point A to point B. There's individual missions in certain locations where you can do them over and over again. It's like, I can smell what Ubisoft's doing. They're up to no good. Like, I can see what they're doing, and they're gonna make it open world and fill it with microtransactions. And like, look, I'm very open on Twitter and on YouTube. Like, I've been playing games with, microtransactions since 2012, and that was Mass Effect 3. But I never bought any with real money. Like, you were able to buy everything in that game with in-game cash. And, ever since, I've never paid for a single microtransaction. Ever. Now, the reason why I'm getting really infuriated today, and I'm continuing to rant about game prices and why this generation is crap compared to previous generations, is that Ubisoft is pushing NFTs today. A non-fungible token. Now, a lot of people don't know what these are, so I'm going to boil it down to its simplistic form. Let's say there's a helmet that you can get in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. They even showed how this is going to work today. So that helmet could have a number 1 on it, right? But there's only one number 1, right? And you can tie your name to that token or that, product or item. So helmet number 1 belongs to Dave. Now, the person with that helmet can sell said helmet, right? And they can make money off it. And then Ubisoft would make money off it as well. Now, the person that buys it can, use the helmet in-game, and it'll still say number 1, but it'll also read as Dave, be it in the coding or on the helmet itself or whatever. So it will never actually be yours. But you can also transfer the license over, so you can go from Dave number 1 to, let's say your name's, I don't know, Rachel. You could be Rachel number 1. So it's taken items in games and basically give them unique identifying signatures, which to us as players, they don't benefit us. They really don't. Like, I'll use this for Halo. I do not think, by the way, Microsoft will do NFTs. Phil's talked about it. There's nothing that benefits consumers at all. But let's say in Halo Infinite multiplayer, there's a red arm, right? And it's got a cool stripe on it, right? And there's only one version of that with a number 1 on it. That unifying signature ownership belongs to someone. You can transfer that. And that doesn't benefit anyone. Like, if you see another player with that arm saying, oh, they own number 1, it doesn't mean anything. Like, you're not losing out on anything. You're not gaining anything. It's just this new hype train that developers are using to make money. And Ubisoft is cashing, Ubisoft's been wanting to get in on this for years. Right, ACG, another YouTuber, did a fantastic video on NFTs today in Ubisoft. I highly recommend people watch it. I'll actually put it in the description after the show. But it's it doesn't benefit players. And it really, again, makes my piss boil. It really does. I don't I always say on this channel, no swearing. Screw that, not today. Ubisoft are getting away with crap, right? Everything's open world now. And I have no problem with open world games, but the games they make aren't as good. I'm an Assassin's Creed nerd. I have books for Assassin's Creed. I have encyclopedias on the Assassin's Creed universe. I am a nerd. And I could not tell you the story of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. At all. If someone had told me right now, I had to say the story to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I couldn't tell you. But if I had to tell you the story to Assassin's Creed 2 that came out in 2008 or 9, I could tell you. Like Leonardo da Vinci, a side character pops up all the time. I can't remember the side characters of Valhalla, and I'm playing that right now. Does that mean but Valhalla's a bad game? No, it's a good game. I think it's really good. But Assassin's Creed isn't what it once was. Splinter Cell, let's face it, that's not going to be as good as Blacklist. Like, it's not. Like, you like a Splinter Cell as well, right?
Yeah, Splinter Cell's awesome.
Yeah, like, I don't see that going back to how it was. Like, that game came out, it had a single-player campaign, you could do co-op in some missions, and it had the multiplayer mode, where it was supported by map packs. And it's like, I can't see us living in a world where we're going to get a new, shiny Splinter Cell game shown off, and it's going to be what people want. Because the problem is, right, and I've been ranting for about 15 minutes on microtransactions and NFTs and stuff. I talk about the 360 generation all the time is because we got all these unique games, and we got sequels to those games. You know, we got a Dead Space trilogy. They were amazing. Whether people like 3 or not, we got 3 excellent space sci-fi RPG, I should say horror games. You look at Batman, we got 3 Batman Arkham games, these open world Batman games that just played amazing. We got 3 Bioshock games, amazing. We're never going to have that again. Like, these franchises we have now, and some are going to be announced during the Game Awards, and we'll get onto that later in the show. We're going to have these sequels to games we love announced, and it's going to be disappointing. And this has been going on for years. You know, Metal Gear Solid 5 was not a Metal Gear Solid game. It wasn't good. It had excellent gameplay. Superb gameplay. But it's not what it once was. And this is why I feel like I'm turning into an old fart. I'm being honest, like, I feel like an old fart when I say it's like gaming isn't as good as it used to be. We have these like awesome games coming, like Guardians of the Galaxy, stellar experience. Psychonauts 2, beautiful. Forza Horizon, fantastic. Flight Simulator, people can call it boring, I like it. But it's like, when it comes to these franchises we love, we have to accept that, unfortunately, we're not going to get good sequels to these franchises that are in development. You know, Bioshock's going to come back. People are going to be surprised when that's showing off. You know, Splinter Cell's coming back. I'm worried about that. And I don't concern. If anyone's followed me longer than a week, they know I don't like to concern about stuff. I'm concerned about Splinter Cell. You know, Assassin's Creed's going to turn into an open world. Again, it already is open world, but it's going to turn into a live service, which has me concerned. And then they announced NFTs today, and that was my breaking point. Like, I was just like, I love Ubisoft games, and it's just the diminishment in quality has gone down so much over an entire generation that I've got 360 footage on right now of a game called Binary Domain. This game would never be made today, at all. Do you know why? Because it's linear and there's no way to monetize it. Very few publishers are making games like this now. And when I say games like this, I mean games we can play, put on the shelf, and play something else. You know, it's one of the reasons why I tell people, support THQ and Focus Home Interactive. Their games don't have microtransactions or, like, you know, forced live service elements. And it's disappointing. Like, and look, Shizno, look, I agree. Like, gaming is better than ever in a lot of ways, but gaming has gone downhill in a lot of others. Like, Ubisoft is my favorite publisher. They've diminished in quality every year for the past 8 years. Let's say 7. Let's be fair. Let's say 7. You know, Activision, they used to come out with unique experiences all the time that weren't Call of Duty, like things like Singularity. We wouldn't get that today, not at all. You know, let's look at EA during the 360 generation. We got Dead Space. We got the Mass Effect trilogy. Well, technically 2 and 3 with them. You know, we got an awesome multiplayer by them. We got Mirror's Edge. That was a vomit-inducing simulator at the time, but I got better. But it's like, these unique games we got during that generation, like, that's why I'm so nostalgic over it, and like backwards compatibility. Like, these games would not come out today. Yeah, we have amazing games coming out in the next 6 months. You know, Halo Infinite is out tomorrow. It's reviewed well, which we'll talk about later. You know, things like Starfield is out next year. Things like Stalker 2. A Plague Tale 2 comes out next year. Like, all these games look fantastic, but you have to admit the 360 generation was just easier to enjoy. There was no circles of BS. You didn't have day one patches the size of the game itself. I've seen games come out on a Tuesday, get a patch on the Wednesday as big as the game itself. And that's expected now. It really is. It's expected. And when a game comes out working without a day one patch, people are shocked. Do you know the game that did that? Guardians of the Galaxy launched without a day one patch, and it worked. And I know it's something we shouldn't parade, and I know it's something we shouldn't celebrate because, oh, yay, a game works. But it's like, it surprised me to the point where I'm fanboying over that game, telling people to buy it. I do not work for Square Enix. I'm not getting any money. Like, I'm telling people to buy that game because it's good. Genuinely. And it's a shame. It really is. Like, again, I feel like an old farce. Like, games just don't seem as fun. Like, there's excellent games coming out all the time. And there's, again, Halo coming out. You know, The Gunk comes out next week. But it's like, I don't know. Am I saying anything that makes sense?
Yeah, I there are definitely some things you've said that I agree with. I think part of it boils down to is I don't think businesses have the brass to pull some of these ideas and stuff that they did in the past, whether cultural stuff has changed and so they just don't feel like they can do certain things anymore, or if the money has gotten to the point where they're so expensive to make that they're going for simplistic things, or what the deal is, but it has just been astronomically just. I don't know. It's definitely way different than it was back then. It's not necessarily that everything was glorious and great back then, because you have 30 FPS standard and all this other stuff, and then like these games could their servers and stuff couldn't handle as many players as today, and the tech today is obviously better. Um, the companies have more resources than ever. Xbox is way better positioned today than they were back then. It seemed like there was way more risks taken. But that yes, I know hashtag Game Pass shill, but that's why it's so good because it allows people to take risks and throw out some things out there that I would have been like, huh, that's odd. All right, I'll try it. Like, for example, Lost in Random. It's not on Game Pass, but it's an EA title where there's a dicey character, and this luck of the draw, luck of the roll affects combat and the story and everything, and like that's a kind of a risky game that I'm surprised got made, but I'm glad it did. It Takes Two, which is nominated for lots of awards at tomorrow's showcase. It was definitely not a traditional game at all, and I'm super glad it got made because it's like Pixar but a game, and it's brilliant. And I just wish we could see more games like that, more innovative, creative, and just different. Like you mentioned, Pandemic Studios and Visceral. They made the Dead Space trilogy. They made Saboteur. They made all these old Star Wars games. So many things, and they're long gone. R.I.P. But it's just I hope that we continue to see more studios take risks and make some titles like they did back then. And I definitely love sequels. I'm probably part of the problem. I like sequels. I like stories and franchises I can get invested in. And especially for some companies I think who milk it dry. Like it's like, okay, you've gotten to a point where the story is no longer coherent or is it's just horrible or whatever, and this story should have ended 3 games ago. But then there are some really good examples where these franchises can go on and on and on, be an enduring saga. It just depends on the talent of the writers you have, the staff for creating the game, and the lore itself. and I think Xbox is really positioned well with Halo and Gears and Hellblade and all these franchises and Outer Worlds. And going forward, that they can take these new IPs or these established IPs and expand them to be bigger than ever.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And like, I think it's just me with all the new backwards compatibility games. I'm looking at the past thinking it was so much better, but there's been a lot that's happened like really good since, Xbox has came massively over the past few years. We have them putting out more original games than pretty much anyone else. The sequels coming out. THQ Nordic is investing big into games. Focus Home Interactive is becoming a bigger publisher, putting out bigger games. So like it is getting better, in some ways. I just think it's that NFT situation. I think I just had a think switch go off in my head, thinking not having this. Like it's just like I've always had this thing like spend your money on what you want, but if you don't want something, don't support it. Like I don't like microtransactions. I've never bought any. I've never spent a single penny on them. So when I saw NFTs and Ubisoft in the same sentence, that was my breaking point. like if I see an Assassin's Hood in the next Splinter Cell that's an NFT, I'm gonna go off it. And the sad thing is, it's gonna happen. It really is. But no, it is a good time to be a gamer. Like there's lots of good stuff coming. I think it's just the nostalgia thing. But, hell, we're going to continue the rant because, and this isn't actually about Microsoft. This is an Xbox-centric podcast, and we'll talk about third-party games. But I want to talk about Sony because they are doing their fans a disservice, and nobody's talking about it. And it's really disappointing because, like, Xbox, at the beginning of the year, they tried to raise the prices of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. And people were vocal about it, as they should have been. And guess what? Microsoft listened. They came out and said, look, we're not going to do this. And then they end up saying in the same day, hey, we're going to make multiplayer for free-to-play games, not requiring gold. So everyone got a win out of the scenario. Microsoft looked better because they changed their mind. Gamers got something in return. Win-win. That's how it should work. But today I see that Sony's removing 2 games from the store, and I think that was Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy. Now, those games are getting remastered for PlayStation 5 and PC. So they're not only delisting those games, which is one thing, they are charging the gamers that own those titles already a $10 fee to upgrade. And it's like nobody's being vocal about it, and that's a problem. People are only being vocal about, not just their favorite company, but a company they don't like. I hear podcasts that run from Friday to Thursday the next week that all they do is complain about Game Pass. All they do is complain about Xbox. And it's like, if you want better, demand better across the board. Like, hell, people were so vocal about Nintendo's, like, online thing that they actually said they're going to improve on it, which is good on Nintendo. They're going to invest more money into their online ecosystem. Hooray for everyone, win-win scenario. But the Sony thing, it's like they're getting charged for upgrades to next gen, which makes no sense considering we live in a generation where we can have upgrades for free. As all these other developers, CD Projekt Red, people can hate on them all they want, but we're getting free upgrades. THQ Nordic, Ubisoft, Rockstar in some cases, like we are getting free upgrades. But PlayStation just isn't, and it's like it's not a good look. It really isn't. Like you shouldn't. Like imagine if PC gamers were charged to get like an ultra pack, people would be livid, and people need to be vocal. Like, and yeah, this is an Xbox centric show, and there's no fanboy crap on here, but I have to mention it because nobody's talking about it. And then I see today someone from Digital Foundry, and Digital Foundry do good work. Someone was mentioning, I think it was David. I get everyone's names mixed up in general, but it was on about how Halo Infinite's campaign isn't on the disc. But people aren't complaining about delisted games. That just seems a bit off. Like, I don't know. I think people should be vocal all the way around. Like, should Xbox put their next gen versions on the disc? Absolutely. But people have to be vocal for every aspect wrong with gaming. And that's the problem. People aren't. Charging upgrades. Really? Is that where we're at? We're in a generation where... another rant. We don't need remasters of last-gen games. We just don't. Many developers have proven, hey, we'll just patch them for free. And they're not calling it a remaster. They're not listing simplistic features and using them as selling points. They're just saying, hey, you over there with that copy of this game, you're going to get an update that makes it look and perform better for free. For free. And that's great for a consumer. I get all this free crap and I enjoy it. But $10 upgrades? I don't know. What's your thought on this, man?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of unsmart delivery, to be honest. Um, I know that that's just my name for it because it's the opposite of Xbox's smart delivery. And I have a PlayStation. I've supported them. I love their brand, the games they make. They make great stuff. But how they've been handling this has been really irritating, and especially the having to upcharge or upgrades for some games. Like I bought the like hundred something dollar Ghost of Tsushima like gold whatever digital max edition thing on PS4, and yet they still want me to pay like $30 to upgrade. I'm like, are you serious? Like I bought the hundred something dollar version of it digitally, and I have that came with season passes, all that stuff. Yet you still want me to shill out basically half another game to upgrade it. When I don't know, it that's just an example. It's not even the one you're talking about today with Uncharted, but it just made me think about it and how that one was particularly irksome to me. And it just, and then how they've had so many issues. You remember with Doom Eternal, and then Avengers, where it just the people were having problems with their saves or progress, or the visuals weren't doing it right, trying to upgrade, and it was complicated. Like you have to do these certain things, reset this or do that, instead of just, oh, would you like to upgrade? And you're like, yeah, sure. You click yes, and then it upgrades for you, and boom, it's done. It, and I agree. I find it odd and annoying on Xbox's part that they don't just put the game on the disc either. That's one thing I do appreciate that Sony does, is that Xbox doesn't just put it on the disc. That seems really weird to me. Yes, I know this will make me sound old too, but I remember back when you could just put a game in the console and play immediately. Yes, I know things are way more advanced now, like the tech, the infrastructure, the amount of data, yada yada yada. I get it, the processing, the online features, but there is something to be said for there's so much that takes up space and updates and takes time just to get these things ready. When it if it's gone gold, why doesn't that mean it's just ready to go? Why do I have to do this and this and that? And yeah, I agree. I think both honestly have some things they need to work on. I think Sony with how they charge things and do their customers that way, and then I think Xbox with convenience needs to improve some things.
Yeah, across the board, everyone could do something better. And this goes into third party as well. Like Rockstar, they're going to charge everyone for like the enhanced edition of GTA 5, a game I've bought twice. It's like the thing is, I say now I'm not going to buy another copy, but we'll see where we are in a few months from now. But it's like, I don't know, man. It's just like, I think people shouldn't be okay with certain things. Like people need to be vocal about all this crap. Like they really do. Like be vocal about Xbox and the discs. And here's the thing. I think Xbox Series or Xbox Series X, as far as I know, they can read the larger format of Blu-rays. So I think that's something they can just fix just by, putting the games on the disc rather than, a download, signature. But yeah, I don't know, charging people for upgrades, that just doesn't sit well with me. Like, we even saw before these consoles came out, like Cyberpunk, they were saying, hey, you're going to get the upgrade for free. And, we're still waiting for it. Like, we will get it regardless, one day free. Hell, we're even getting a free upgrade for The Witcher next year, which I'll be putting another few hundred hours into that. But it's like, request free upgrades by all publishers. Like, we shouldn't just be getting them just now and then by, one publisher or two publishers. Like, no, ask for free upgrades all the time. Like, hell, the jump from GTA 5 on Xbox 360 to Xbox One and PlayStation 4, that wasn't really much of a jump. We got anti-aliasing in 1080p in a first-person mode. Congratulations. Not much else there. They added some extra traffic, but nobody cares. You know, all around, it just needs to be better. Everyone just needs to be more vocal in general. And yeah, I know I've ranted a lot today, but again, I think it was just the NFT situation. It really struck a nerve. But yeah, anyway, let's move on. So we got a new Game Pass game at 1 in the morning. Shadow drop out of nowhere. And that's Serious Sam 4, a game that launched on Stadia back in 2019. Now, I've been talking about this game for years on Twitter, and I've played the other Serious Sam games. And if you don't know what Serious Sam is, it's basically Doom, but with a lot of enemies. The graphics aren't as good as Doom, but the point is that the game throws at you sometimes hundreds and sometimes thousands of enemies at you on screen, and it's absolutely crazy, especially with it being... Oh, and by the way, this is the first game in the series where you can go to third person, which I discovered by accident. You just press down on the D-pad, third person, and it's good. Like, yeah, people are saying it's got 67 on Metacritic. I don't care about Metacritic. It's a fun game, and I think people need to play it. Like, have you played it yet?
I have not. I actually woke up to that news today. So I haven't installed it yet, but I've been really curious about the Serious Sam collection. I know that's been on sale a few times. And Serious Sam 4, obviously. And I remembered when it was announced as a Stadia timed exclusive. I was like, huh, that's an odd ship to, anchor with. But obviously now with Stadia kind of just floating around, it makes sense for them to put it on other platforms. So I'll for sure be checking it out.
Yeah, it's really good because it's one of these games where they just throw an unbelievable amount of enemies at you. So the graphics aren't that good, but it looks better than the previous games. Like, you're getting a solid first-person shooter with Doom-style handling, and the frame rate was solid. Like, in parts of the game, it seemed to be all over the place. But all in all, I think this is a next-gen game. I'm trying to check while we're live. But, like, for all intents and purposes, it's an Xbox Series exclusive game, I believe. Someone will need to help us confirm that. But, yeah, it's kind of weird because they dropped it at, like, 1 in the morning without any warning. And I think more people need to play it. Like, this looked like it was going to be one of the shadow drops towards the Game Awards. And, like, yeah, people need to play it. It's not even a big file, really. Like, I say big. I think it's like 40 gigabytes. But, yeah, people need to play it. Now, I'm talking about Game Pass because every so often, the Game Pass Twitter account will put out this fake email image and, by Melissa McGamepass with a lot of redacted material. And we got to get a bunch of Game Pass announcements at the Game Awards. Now, I'm saying this now because I want people to maybe save their money, or if they want to support the developer or whatever. I think Mass Effect Legendary Edition is going to be on the list because it's been spotted as a Game Pass game temporarily in, I think, Mexico. So it looks like Mass Effect Legendary Edition might be coming to Game Pass. Considering the sale for the massive drop, I think it was like 50% reduced or something recently, up until a few days ago, but now it's not that anymore. So if people are looking to buy Mass Effect Legendary Edition, give it a few days, because I think it's going to drop. And the reason why it surprised me more than anyone, is because normally EA wants to wait about a year before they put a game in Game Pass. But Microsoft, they clearly like to throw the money about and get these big games in Game Pass. Mass Effect Legendary Edition being one of the biggest and best games of the year. It really is. By the way, have you played Legendary Edition yet?
I have not, but it's on my to-do list, and I have the Steelbook and everything, and I love Mass Effect Trilogy, one of my favorite stories ever told, and I am definitely going to be jumping into that. I'll probably honestly wait closer till the next Mass Effect comes out. Fingers crossed it comes out and is smooth and everything, so I can do a franchise playthrough. But that is a there's a gold mine jackpot for Game Pass if that comes. And if you've never played the Mass Effect trilogy, absolutely must play. It's one of the greatest trilogies ever made. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, so this is where I nerd out a bit over a game I love. Like I talk about Mass Effect all the time, and I was going to be brutally honest. Like I have a review on my hard drive. I just haven't put out. Like I may still put it out depending on whenever the thing drops. But like Mass Effect Legendary Edition is proof that you can do a remaster right. Like we've seen remasters for games coming out, and they've been legitimate just ports. Like Prototype 1 and 2 by Activision. They are literal ports of the 360 version, and they don't look as good. So, we've seen bad remasters. Another good remaster, I'd say, was Saints Row the Third remastered. Excellent remaster. But Mass Effect Legendary Edition, not only did they get out 3 games with all DLC, working well, it is borderline perfection. Like, I had bugs through all of my playthroughs of Mass Effect 2 back in the day. And all those bugs, I didn't expect to be, gone. I really didn't. I was thinking, you know what? It's a lot of content. There's obviously still going to be some of those bugs there. No. The bugs I've been used to for years, for over a decade now, were gone completely. And a lot of infamous bugs that people listening might have had this. There was a bug on Mass Effect 3. Only about 20% of people had this. Is that if you were talking to the Yara or someone, your character's head would turn to the left throughout the entire dialogue sequence. So, if there was a romance scene or something, you just have Shepard's head just looking to the side, and it was really awkward. And, replaying these games, the same bug would pop up, and none of these bugs are in Legendary Edition. And they went back and made the first game not just presentable, not just a resolution bump. It's borderline remake the first game. The first game is gorgeous. It really is. And it shows what developers should and could do with remasters, because we've seen over the past few months, not all remasters are built the same. Alan Wake Remastered comes out, great condition. I think people should pick it up if they want to play Alan Wake. Probably the best way to play Alan Wake. You have Crisis 1. I'll admit, it's not the best remaster, Crisis 1. Crisis 2 and 3 are apparently in better state, but GTA, the Definitive Edition, well, let's face it, those memes have been on Twitter for a month and a half now, and wow, that is not the best remaster. But Mass Effect Legendary Edition, you have 3 games, 50 hours a piece if you do all the content, and then you have the expansions, and it's it's all the content there except Pinnacle Station, because they didn't have the source code, but it's just a firing range. But all in all, this is a huge get for Game Pass. It really is. 3 of the best games ever made. It completely changed my opinion on Mass Effect 3. It went from an 8 to a 9.5 just by playing this, which I might get into at another time, but it's that is, it's been listed for Game of the Year for some nominations at some game outlets, and it's not because there's people like me there hyping over Mass Effect. It's no, it's a excellent product. Over the years, we've had these compilations of games that have been fantastic. The Orange Box on Xbox 360, which had Half-Life 2, Half-Life 2 Episode 2 and 3, Portal, and Team Fortress. That was a must-buy collection. And then you had things like Batman, Return to Arkham. Again, must-buy collection. And now Master Chief Collection, that is a must-buy collection now. So you have Mass Effect entering that league, and it's perfect. I didn't experience a single bug playing 3 games. I put about 156 hours into the trilogy last time, when I played it. Not a single bug at all. And that includes the first game, which has reworked controls, reworked aiming. Aiming actually is a thing now. The Mako controls like a vehicle and not like a bar of soap on ice. It's perfect. Yeah. And it's and the reason why I'm hyped for people is because this is going to be a lot of people's first time playing the games. Millions of people own Game Pass. And I'm sure there's people that are going to listen to this podcast that have never played these games. And one, I'm jealous, because you're going to experience these games in the best form possible. You're going to get 4K 60. You're going to get 1800p, 120 frames per second, if you have a Series X and the correct television. But even on Series S, you're getting, I think it's 4K 30, in like 1600p, it's like 60 frames per second, you're getting a good deal. You're getting the best versions of these games. Now, I know I sound hyped about games I've already played and, games that have been out for decades, but really, like, right before Christmas, a big Game Pass dropped. Like, there's going to be a ton of games announced, and there was about, I think, 6 things listed. So you have to think about what other big games have came out this year that could be listed. And I'm thinking, what if it's a game? This is, pie in the sky thing. What if Final Fantasy VII Remake's in there?
Now that would be wild.
Now, I get it's a wild card, right? It's a Square Enix game. It's rumored to have another 6 months of exclusivity with PlayStation and all that stuff, but I feel like they're going to be really big at the Game Awards. 2 years in a row now, they've surprised people. 2019, it was the Xbox Series X and Hellblade 2, and last year it was Perfect Dark when they told us not to look forward to anything big. So we've been told that there's going to be a big Game Pass drop this next week or whatever, and it's like, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of what other big games have came out earlier this year that would be in Game Pass, like possibly a Biomutant, that's been a fun game. I don't know, I have a feeling about, like, maybe Persona, because there's been an Atlas game randomly listed on Steam right before the Game Awards. Like, maybe that's me reading too much into it, but I don't know. Have you got any suspicions of what it could be? Any of the games?
I don't know. There's a lot it could be. I know Persona's been something people have wanted for a very long time on the Xbox platform. That would be a killer snag, especially with that Steam tease. That's kind of, a little eye-opening. I think major Ubisoft title. I know we spent half an hour just tearing them to shreds, but it wouldn't shock me if maybe a Far Cry 6. Just throwing it out there because I know there's been rumors about about Ubisoft and some of their subscription merging with Game Pass at one point or becoming part of a Game Pass thing. So Far Cry 6 to me, that would be a major title to announce as part of Game Pass. Maybe they announce some brand new games during the evening, and then they, end that segment with day one on Game Pass. That might be some of them as well. I don't know. There's a lot of things it could be.
Now that you mentioned that, you might have a point, because during E3, almost every single game that was announced, things like Atomic Heart, Stalker 2, were all announced as Game Pass titles. So maybe the games that are going to be announced there are also Game Pass games as well. So, we might as well move into the next topic. Predictions, right? Jeff Keighley says there's going to be 30 games shown, and games in the double digits that are new releases, and 5 things that are on the scale of Elden Ring. Now, I don't like to be, I don't like to put the tinfoil hat on or anything, but I'm going to do that for this topic. I think BioShock's going to be there. That's pretty much all but confirmed. I've heard about it, that it's coming, and it's open world now. But BioShock, that's a huge game to come back. Like, people have been waiting for years for BioShock to come back. It's been 7-8 years now or something. Like, it's been a long time. We've been to Rapture, we've been to whatever the place in the sky was called. It's been a long time. I think it's time we see Hogwarts Legacy. We had the reveal last year. I've been talking about Hogwarts Legacy on and off on podcasts for 2 years now. Like, I've seen the game up and running. I'll talk about it. I don't want people to read too much into what I'm about to say, because I know for a fact someone will take it the wrong way. The combat looks like Dark Souls from the camera perspective, right? I don't mean the combat looks like Dark Souls. I mean literally the way you lock onto a character and the way the camera moves from side to side. Just side strafing. Looks very like Dark Souls, but the combat looks very good. I think we could see Hogwarts Legacy. That's going to be one of 2022's biggest games, and we still haven't seen much on it. Gotham Knights is rumored to be coming out in March. So wouldn't it make sense for a release date trailer to come out at the Game Awards? And another thing, Injustice 2. There's been rumors for a while now that, we all know that the I'm trying to think what you call it, Mortal Kombat 11. I've got all these different franchises in my head, but Mortal Kombat 11, it got its final support earlier in the year, so now they've moved on to different stuff. There's been rumors of Mortal Kombat 12. I don't think that's coming yet, but I think Injustice 3, I think that might be the big game being announced there by Warner Brothers. I don't know. Do you have any predictions?
Yeah, I've got a few. I think Hellblade 2 is gonna be there, and I think they're gonna show far more of it than they did the last few times we've seen something from it. Um, I'm not sure if it'll be there, but I wouldn't be shocked if we see Avowed, as there's been some rumblings that maybe Avowed was supposed to have been at E3, but it got bumped for something else and kicked the can down the road a little bit to Game Awards. So I definitely wouldn't be shocked if you saw Avowed. Um, I I think the rumored Chrono Cross remake, this would be the spot for it. Whether it's PS5 exclusive or not, I have a feeling that there's a good chance you could see that. Um, it wouldn't shock me if there's a few, like, as far as the games that are quote unquote Elden Ring levels. I mean, I think a Chrono Cross remake is pretty daggum high on a list. Bioshock, new one, Bioshock 4, I guess. If it's wherever it takes place depends on what things you read. I think that'll be massive. Whether it ends up being good or not, I don't know, but that would be a massive title. If Valve wanted to shock the world and actually announce a new game that they're making that's non VR, that would be pretty shocking. Uh, and I think Xbox has a surprise up their sleeve probably. Just something you wouldn't expect. That would be one of my predictions. Is that Xbox will throw out something that you're like, oh my gosh, they're actually working on that. I don't know. It just feels like the time's right for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think you might have something with the whole Valve thing. Valve's been quiet for a long time. They said after Half-Life Alyx released that the future of Half-Life isn't in VR. Like, there will be more, probably, but, like, they seem fairly committed that we would see more Half-Life on platforms, and it's like, I think Half-Life would be a really good game to get out. Like, even if it's, like, a port of Alyx in some capacity, but, like, Valve's been really quiet. But yeah, I think Avowed. Like, I think a lot of people have the suspicion of, like, Avowed's going to be there. Like, there were rumors it was going to be shown off earlier in the year. The thing about Avowed is, I don't think people realize how big that game's going to be. I think people just look at the Outer Worlds, looking at being a smaller RPG, and think, oh, it's going to be that, but fantasy. It's like, no, this is like, it's meant to be like Skyrim big, which is pretty huge because I think most people have heard of Skyrim and it's pretty good. Um, that and Fable. There's been Fable rumors for a while. Here's the thing: Fable's been in development for 4 years. Wouldn't it make sense to have another showing of something like Fable at the Game Awards? I'm not taking a word that Aaron Greenberg says too seriously, because last year he said, "Keep your expectations in check," and we got Perfect Dark. Right? That's why I'm getting my hopes up for a Microsoft game, because, again, Perfect Dark, pretty huge announcement. By the way, that trailer was awesome. But yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of big surprises. A lot of big games that were meant to be announced in 2020 got pushed back into this year. Hell, Saints Row was originally meant to be announced in early 2020. It got pushed back to this year. So I think we're going to see a lot of returning franchises. And I think it's going to be one to watch. Like, I've been very vocal about the Game Awards. Like, whether people think certain, games are being snubbed or not, I think they have a point. But the Game Awards, we get to see big game announcements. And that's mainly why I watch. And if you live in Europe, in the UK, we're going to be watching this thing at like 3 in the morning, so prepare. It's going to be a long haul, because the Game Awards, like, Jeff Keighley puts on these really long award shows that are almost as long as the Oscars and WrestleMania combined. But But yeah, it should be good. Like I look forward to new game announcements, and it should be one to watch, and especially for Xbox stuff. Like it looks like we're gonna see some Xbox stuff. And speaking of Xbox stuff, we got to talk about Halo. We got a teaser trailer today for the TV show, which is going to be on, I think, HBO. No, Paramount. I get all the American ones mixed up, but the new live action Halo got a teaser trailer today, and we're getting a new trailer at the Game Awards. It looks like it's going to be good. I don't know. I think, or I might actually release tomorrow. It's hard to tell with the bloody time zone difference and stuff, but we're getting a new trailer tomorrow, and it looks like it's going to be good. Have you kept up with the live action stuff?
Yeah, I'm stoked for that. I love all things Halo, and I was really bummed back in the day when they canceled the Neil Blomkamp Halo movie. That would have been epic because and then side rant, he had that epic was gonna be retconning Alien movie that was gonna be amazing, and that got canceled too. But I'm excited for the show, and yeah, it's on Paramount Plus. And the teaser trailer definitely kind of got me hyped, and I bet it's going to be a really nice look at it. Maybe see Cortana, maybe a snippet of her, or something else, because we've seen Chief a little bit. So that's definitely yet another reason to tune into the Xbox Award or Game Award. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think, the reason why I think a lot of people are going to have their eyes on this, it's like, when the series was, like, the original was announced, back when the Xbox One was announced, like, this was meant to be integrated media, A lot of companies were trying to do this, where you'd have the game universe and the TV and movie universe living together, right? And then they tried it again with the live-action series Nightfall, which I liked. I thought was pretty good. But I think they realized that formula just isn't going to work anymore. Having the interconnected universe between movie and TV and expect people... Like, if everything's on Disney+, Plus, all you need to do is watch Disney+. Plus. But if you need a game and a TV show and, everyone doesn't have all the devices or know what to play, or you have gamers not wanting to watch it or whatever, I think they're going the right direction with this because it's aimed at everyone. It's a fresh start. It's not connected to the, books or games or anything. It's Halo, Master Chief story, new thing from the get-go, new universe, and I think they're going to do it right. Like, it looked like it has a big budget behind it. I know Paramount is investing more money into TV than ever before, because the thing is, all these TV shows and, like, TV show creators, they are looking for the next Game of Thrones, right? Game of Thrones was a international, worldwide phenomenon that people talked about all the time, right? Every week an episode would come out, people would talk about it, there'd be memes, merchandise 24/7, no matter where you were on the planet. We haven't had that since. And ever since, like, all these creators have been looking to make that next thing. Westworld was meant to be that. It didn't take off. Sony and I can't remember what other company, like The Last of Us, they wanted The Last of Us to be a huge TV show. That's got a big budget behind it. There's been rumors that we're going to get a Titanfall TV series for 6 years. I'm still waiting for that. But regardless, like, these companies are investing into video game IP because, let's face it, original ideas don't sell anymore. Like, the Witcher books, they're being turned into live-action, TV series. People like The Witcher. And this is going to continue forward. We've seen a Gears of War film in the future. We haven't seen a trailer for that yet, but it's like, it looks like Microsoft and Paramount, they're going to do a good job with Halo in its live-action form, big budget, and it looked cool. Now, speaking of Halo, all the Halo reviews dropped. Now, I'm not going to talk about spoilers. There's not going to be any spoilers for, Halo at all. It's reviewing well. And people are saying it's the best Halo game. Some people are calling it the best first-person shooter campaign in the past decade, which is high praise because we've had some bloody good campaigns in the past decade. We've had things like Titanfall 2. We've had things like, I'd say Call of Duty Infinite Warfare was a fantastic campaign, but, like, the praise this game is getting is the praise people have been wanting. Halo Infinite was delayed a year, right? It was meant to launch with the Xbox Series X and S, and it was delayed a year, and people were wondering what's going to happen with it. And it's came out, fantastic applause by everyone. Everyone loves it. Multiplayer, campaign across the board. Loved. And I think that's a great thing because I think 343's needed this win. And also Halo fans. Like if you follow the Halo community on social media, it's not the best.
God bless you, man.
Yeah, it's like it's not the best place, and I'll actually link them to Star Trek fans. Like Star Trek fans, and I'm a Star Trek fan. Most aren't ever happy, right? Like no matter what, always complaining on social media. No matter what, a Halo fan could be handed a gold brick and they'd complain about it in some form, right? And across the board, people love this game. It's reviewing well. Metacritic scores high. I don't care about Metacritic. I actually read the reviews. People are saying it's fun and it's different. Its mission structure isn't like a typical Halo game, which, in my opinion, sounds refreshing because I recently went through Halo Reach and I was thinking, wow, I finished that fairly quickly. And I didn't use sprint much at all, the sprint ability, and I realized first-person shooter campaigns are really short. Titanfall 2 is praised by everyone, myself included, but it's short. It's like 8 hours long, if you're lucky. It's a bloody masterpiece, but it's short. And I think with Halo, them knowing that they need to sell the campaign standalone, it has to be not just big, but it has to have, a decent amount of content. And I think them moving to an open style structure for missions, giving you different options to complete them in, was the right way to go. People love it, like Giant Bomb, GameStop or GameSpot, IGN, like the big outlets love it, and a lot of the bigger YouTubers love it as well. And it's like, I think that year delay proves that games should be delayed. Like if developers think the game doesn't look like that good, or if there's something wrong with it, or people have genuine concerns, delay it, because that's clearly worked in Halo's favor. Whereas a year before we had Cyberpunk come out and we saw the situation that happened online. It got memed to hell. People say it's a great RPG, but it doesn't change the fact that it's, let's face it, Cyberpunk 2077's reputation is ruined forever. It really is. Unless they do a No Man's Sky style comeback, they can't fix it. But Halo, I think we have to congratulate 343. They did a fantastic job with Halo 4. That campaign was amazing, in my opinion. The multiplayer in Halo 5 was spectacular. So they combined the elements of what people liked about both, put them together, and people enjoy it. They have free-to-play multiplayer for the masses. That's on PC and console. And they have this campaign, which is apparently not only looks amazing, the performance is stellar. Like the Digital Foundry video, it's solid. 60 frames across the board. So have you actually paid attention to any of the reviews then?
Yes, I've been checking them out, and I'm thrilled that it's scored so well. Like you, Metacritic isn't everything to me. I mean, it's something I'll glance at and see, okay, this is kind of how these folks are seeing it, and might read it and go, okay, so they feel the combat is a little bit this way, or the story is this, and then at the end of the day, it's my opinion, or the people I'm good friends with or care about that weigh the most with me. But it's definitely good for Xbox that the memes about Game Pass fodder and all your games get a 69 or a 71. Yeah, those days are gone. If you looked at this year and include Deathloop, which you should, because it was made by an Xbox game studio, even though there was the cluster of the legalities around that about it being PlayStation 5 exclusive for a short amount of time because of contracts. But all their games they've released this year have been just killing it. I think Halo might be the lowest one at
it is
87, 86.
Yeah.
I mean, daggum. That's pretty good. You got Halo, you got Psychonauts 2, you've got Flight Simulator, you have Forza Horizon 5, and Deathloop all in the same year. Goodness gracious, that's an awesome year. And that's just 1 year. And so, yeah, the whole Xbox has no games, that died a while back. But the whole, oh, that's Game Pass fodder, or only hits this score, or whatever, or nobody actually respects the games. They're just getting them out there. Yet no, that's gone. Um, it's brilliant. I'm super stoked to jump in tomorrow and play it. Halo means the world to me. I love the franchise dearly. I'm just engrossed in it. Read books, you know, watched the movies, the shows, the everything. It's just I'm just a Halo junkie, so super stoked for tomorrow. Um, and I'm so glad it's being reviewed well, and that people are appreciating it and saying it's basically their God of War reimagining for the Halo franchise. And if you're an only Xbox gamer, what they mean by that is basically that they took an established brand that was, if you're familiar with Dante's Inferno or Conan or Darksiders, like that style of combat and that style of game in it used to be Greek mythology, but then for God of War they put it in Norse mythology, and they changed it from that kind of hack and slash to more RPG actiony, and put way more character depth and lore into it. And they're not turning Halo into an RPG per se, but they have added, upgrades and abilities and expanded the gameplay so much. And the semi open world is such a great idea. They kind of dabbled in it a little bit with Gears 5, the Coalition did, but this is a lot more expansive. And it seems like the perfect starting point for new people to jump into Halo and go, oh my gosh, this is awesome, and then go back and play the old ones. Or if you're a long time guy like us, then just jump in and continue the story and reminisce and have callbacks, but also points towards the future. And I think the way they've set it up to where they can add future story into places and expand the world, I think this is definitely a jackpot. And it one negative thing I can think of is it makes the idea of them even attempting to have launched this thing a year ago or whenever it was like crazy. Like, a word, could you imagine that thing if it had launched in the state it was? Compared to what it looks like now and everything, it's. I mean, that's one thing I just it blows my mind. I even think they thought it was ready, but I mean, it clearly like there's a famous quote from Mr. Sakurai from Nintendo, legendary creator who's done the Smash series. That it's delay is always better than a rushed game, because a delay you can still end up with something really really good. If you rush out a game, it is almost guaranteed to fall on its face. And as you see, that probably there was a good chance that would have happened. And so, taking the year, you come out smelling like roses, and you have a masterpiece instead of a rushed, shoddy product.
Yeah, you're right. And the whole like Microsoft came a long way. Like the whole like Xbox has no games thing. Like that thing. When people say that now, they clearly just have nothing else to say or personality. Like it's like Microsoft have came a long way. Like they've listened to feedback. Clearly listened to the Halo feedback. All their games now, people are really enjoying them. Psychonauts 2, a lot of people's opinions was that was game of the year. Forza Horizon, people love it. The new, fresh setting, people love it. Flight Simulator finally makes its way to console, and it's the best flight simulator ever made. Age of Empires comes back after decades, and people love it. RTS fans across the board love it. And Deathloop, people like it. Like, it's reviewed really well. And Halo, like, it's a fresh comeback for Halo, because I think it, being more open style affects how people view it. Like, it's not just a linear first-person shooter anymore. It's more open experience where people can spend more time in the world. Because let's face it, when you play a Halo game and you see that beautiful Halo ring, you don't really do much exploring. You get from point A to point B, and sometimes from point B to point A. It's like you spend very little time exploring in Halo games. And I think that's the thing that they've changed with this, is that they've gave you reason to explore. And they've give you abilities which you can upgrade. And it's like, if you give games light RPG mechanics in some way, it almost gives them this soft reboot. You know, Halo Infinite is clearly a soft reboot. Like, it's getting people into the game that have never played it before, fresh gameplay features, better than ever, and it's given fans like you and me that have played for a long time a newer experience, something that we're not used to. And I think, you know, Microsoft giving their developers time was clearly the right way to go. I can't imagine what this game would have been like when it launched in 2020, like, especially with the pandemic and everything. Like, I cannot imagine what this game would have looked like. But I'll tell you tomorrow. The strange thing about it is that we don't have preloads for the campaign, which is my only negative of the situation. I think we should have been allowed to preload the campaign, because the campaign's probably going to be about 40 gigabytes, I'm just guessing, given the open landscapes and stuff. And it's like, we have to download the game, I think it's 6 p.m. UK time, and it's going to be whatever time that is in the US and, you know, Canada and Europe. So basically stay glued to your Xbox, because you're going to get an update, and that updates the campaign, right? So yeah, updates tomorrow are going to be pretty big, and that's the campaign. But yeah, again, Halo is almost out. Stay tuned to the whole Game Awards situation. We will be talking about the Game Awards and everything about Halo next week, because I'm going to make sure I get through at least most of the campaign, and it's meant to be a lengthy campaign. But that's it for today's show. Thanks for everyone listening. Please share it on social media. It really helps the channel out. I'm wanting to grow this podcast much more. I did a video last week. It's top 20 sci-fi games on Xbox Series consoles. It's 47 minutes long, and it's the longest video I've ever produced. Whether future videos in the same, like, you know, top 20s will be just as long, maybe not. But that's it for today. Logan, have you got anything coming up soon when it comes to articles or anything?
Not at the moment, but yeah, tomorrow's definitely going to be interesting and much watch. And I can't wait for Halo, man. It's a holiday for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And plus, a lot of people are just going to be conveniently phoning in sick, because it's not like a big game's releasing. Let's face it, everyone does that. A lot of people do that. Like, the thing is, by now, everyone knows the deal. A big game comes out, you just happen to be a little bit sick. It is how it is, you know. Unfortunate inconvenience, which is also convenient at the same time. But anyway, we will be back next week to talk about Halo and all that good stuff. Stay tuned to the awards. And yeah, our Twitters will be in the description down below, as well as I'll put ACG's link for the NFT situation down in the description down below. I hope everyone has a good day. Again, please share it on social media. I'm out. Peace.